Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and this is Warhammer Underworlds Direchasm, the ultimate competitive miniatures game. Where have I heard that before? If this looks familiar, it's probably because the box art looks very similar to Beastgrave in that the background is identical. It almost looks like the two images should link up, which I think would have been epic if they'd planned that in advance. But it's just where the image is the exact same on the left and right sides. Direchasm is the 4th season of the 1st edition of Underworlds, and is a skirmish game for 2 players in which a session should take 30 minutes if the players are ages 12 plus. As with all Underworlds games, it is set in the Warhammer Age of Sigmar realms. Now, any season of Underworlds is only going to be as good as the sex appeal of its warbands. And there is plenty here with the Dread Pageant. There's also Miari's Purifiers. They're trying so hard to slay and serve. But at the end of the day, they are elves, and well, we all know how I feel about elves. Nevertheless, we shall unbox. We have our rulebook, our quick start guide. They always look so different. There's just no design convention across seasons for these quick start guides. The rulebooks, they always look the same. Following Beastgrave, you'd think Games Workshop might have thought, well, we could condense this down a little bit. No, it is still 40 pages cover to cover. At least the Getting Started guide is still only 8 pages and contains the assembly guide as part of it. We've got our tutorial, combat, end phase, victory, what next? The battlefield, the warbands. Beautifully sculpted by Citadel, beautifully painted by, well, I don't think Citadel does the painting also. Somebody at Games Workshop does. I bought this second hand, but it's effectively brand new. The box was opened, they saw the elves, and they said, I'm going to sell this at a discount. If it had been 2 elf warbands, this would have been a very hard sell for me. Ash, did you just open that with a pen? I am 128 rats in a skin suit of many talents. It takes 16 rats to emulate my voice. Each rat demands a bit of cheese, and that is where we get 16 bits. It's usually around the 45-minute mark where I start to lose my mind. I wonder what's happening. Traditionally, we get 3 sheets of tokens with all of the wound trackers and status markers, which of course display whether or not you can still move, what kind of defense you have, whether or not you have already charged and therefore cannot move or attack, glory points, hexes that will be placed onto the battlefield and serve as objectives, or in some cases, additional obstacles. Oh, that's that symbol. I kept seeing that symbol on a lot of cards that I have. It's the same on both sides. Maybe it's a snare? It's going to be new. We'll have to look at that. You can play Underworlds with more than 2 players. You can have, I think, 4 on the board. They'll continue bringing in their own boards and setting them out. You have to follow a specific set of rules, but it can be done. There are also generic counters. Okay, I like those. I like that it has generics. Activation tokens, that's what those are. And we continue our trend of including magic dice, and I think pretty much every season going forward is going to have magic dice until we get to the 2nd edition. We have our maps here, and again, while I really like the art and I love the idea of these hexes, and I'm fine with the size of the hexes, even if I think they're a bit oversized, I'm actually rather glad the 2nd edition shrinks them down just a tad bit. And I like that the different hexes with the different functions have different outlines to make it very clear what they are. The graphics themselves, while highly evocative, are basically just there. They're just there for random eye candy. You're not really going to be looking at the details all that much at all. Something like this in the background would be more effective in my opinion, just sparse details across a land that is not much vertical real estate. Because it's inconsistent. There's a lot of stuff protruding out of the ground here, but there are no blocked hexes. So there's nothing that's really telling me that the warband or the fighter shouldn't be able to just move freely. And I guess they're jumping up on top of this rock, for example, or maybe hiding behind it. They can't really be hiding behind it because there's no line of sight restrictions because it's not a blocked hex. That's me whining. That's me complaining. And I don't really have any, I don't have a major point to make here. I'm just expressing my wish that more opportunity could have been taken. But the cool thing about the Underworlds boards is that they are double-sided, so you can at least pick and choose which side of the board you want to play, and you can place it however you wish. I think my favorite out of the 4 here in Direchasm is going to have to be this board here. I just like the look of it the most. It has nothing to do with the hex placement, it's just the graphics. But then you can place your boards like this, or you could even place them probably, I don't know if it would be illegal to do so. You can place them, I think, like this. That would be kind of dumb. You would probably want to do quite a bit more access between the boards, but there's nothing stopping you from putting them together, I believe, like this either, or this way, coming up against the other side. And of course, we're viewing both of the boards in this vertical sort of orientation. If you imagine them at the side, it's the same thing. What else comes with Direchasm? Well, we have 3 decks of cards, one for the Dread Pageant, one for Miari's Purifiers, and of course the extra cards that will allow you to do a little bit of deck building, because at the end of the day, that is what Warhammer Underworlds is all about. Weirdly enough, we have our core game dice, our 5 attack, our 3 defense, or as they're later known, save, and then our 3 magic dice, which I think were dropped in 2nd edition altogether. I'm pretty sure the magic dice continue on into every season of 1st edition Warhammer Underworlds. Also, we have our miniatures. So we have to take these and place them in the oven at 400 for 2 hours, after which we will take them out and poke them lightly with a toothpick. Now, I don't want you to have to wait 2 hours, so I have some miniatures that I pre-baked here. Miari's Purifiers and the Dread Pageant are minis that I was able to acquire from packs of warbands for the 2nd edition. They did a release of 4 sets of 4, each after a different Grand Alliance, for the release of Emberguard, and they repeated this trend for Spitewood, which is Emberguard's expansion. It's my personal speculation, you heard it here first, folks, that after this Armageddon dies down, this 40k flagship release, that they'll come back with some sort of Age of Sigmar release, and on the tails of that Age of Sigmar announcement, they will have another 4 warband pack for the newest expansion of Underworlds. None of this is confirmed, it's just speculation. One thing that I thought was really, really weird is that these sculpts are cast in different colors. This blew my mind. I already had Miari's Purifiers, and I knew that I had them, so I opened this box, I regarded the sprues, and I said, okay, so I'm just going to go glance through my stuff real quick and pull out the warbands from my pre-assembled collection. And I was looking for plastic of this color, and I never found it, and I'm like, what's going on? I remember these distinct egg-like alien shapes that are in the ground. I know that I've assembled these miniatures. This oversized harp bow, I've done this. This silly guy with his bird resting on his arm as he dramatically T-poses over the lands, trying to aura farm with his people who are so easily aura farmed. Where are they? And then I finally realized it's a different color that I have. It's this nice light silver. So I'm kind of at a loss for words on that. I don't know what to say or think or believe anymore. The colors of warbands can change. Like the winds. Great, now I'm one of the elves. I'd like to go through the rulebook briefly before we take a look at the cards and the miniatures. In Gur, only predators survive. Those who cannot hunt, those who cannot chase down or ensnare their prey, perish. They become the hunted. The realm is strewn with the bones of predators who became prey. Their brittle skulls break like pottery beneath the boots and hooves of the victorious. Their flesh feeds the fields. Their names are forgotten, but the name of Beastgrave is seared into the minds of many Gurish tribes, echoing across the realm through folktales and honored in sacrificial rites. Still, the great mountain towers over the heartlands of Gur, visible upon any horizon, so they say. Still do warriors and wanderers seek it out, drawn by the rumor of riches or the prospect of winning blood-soaked renown. Beastgrave calls to them in their dreams, speaking of caverns to plunder and jewels to wrest from the limp hands of the unworthy. It tempts the avaricious and taunts the arrogant, promising whatever it must to lure them into its depths. Once inside, few escape. Time was, Beastgrave would devour them and grow stronger still. Yet a rot now spreads in the mountain's gut, an ice-hold malady stealing its sustenance, starving it from within. Beastgrave has been cursed. Starved beasts are dangerous. They become desperate, unpredictable. A primal power is stirring across Gur, uniting its scattered forces, but Beastgrave will wait no longer to be sated. Hunger burns at the mountain's core, and raw emotion floods its deepest caverns like rising lava. The mountain has woken too soon, purging itself of the solid amber that once filled the dreadful region known as Direchasm. This gloomy underworld had long held its own secrets. Things fearsome and fabled slept in the amber, and while some have fled to the solace of other mountains, leaving behind treasures of untold worth, ravenous entities haunt the shadows still. Here at the roots of the mountains, violence reigns. Rills of blood run through claustrophobic tunnels as caverns ring with the clash of blades. Fighters already consumed by primitive instincts plunge to new depths of savagery as Beastgrave's wrath takes hold. Though the spoils of victory may be greater than ever, one fact remains: where many predators compete, few can prevail. With Direchasm, we get the lore of the Call of the Mountain and another explanation of the Katophrane Curse, which began in the city of Shadespire in Shyish, the realm of death. Our section on Primal Emotion explains the Star Bloodstalkers and Kagra's Ravagers, as well as Miari's Purifiers and the Dread Pageant. Now these guys I thought were interesting enough, I'd like to read a little bit about them. Having first entered Beastgrave in pursuit of visions of their missing deity Slaanesh, the depraved mortals known as the Dread Pageant were soon gripped by a new obsession, the tormenting of the sentient mountain itself. Like all Slaaneshi Hedonites, the Dread Pageant are slaves to sensation, and when they first tasted Beastgrave's anguish at being denied its usual feast of flesh, they began to goad the mountain by withholding its succor, torturing their victims to the point of death while imbibing Beastgrave's despair. In the claustrophobic depths of Direchasm, the mountain's raw emotions are at their most tangible, sending the Dread Pageant into a euphoric state. I see, so the mountain is sated when people die, but when the Katophrane Curse spread throughout, people don't die, which is kind of Underworld's whole thing. It's just non-stop killing over and over, the same warbands, the same fighters. As usual, your success in this game is measured in glory points, awarded for achieving objectives and vanquishing your foes. Whoever has the most glory points at the end of the game wins. We have the anatomy of the fighter cards, the decks, objective cards, the battlefield, lethal hexes, edge hexes. Everything here is pretty much the same. The game setup has not changed. I'd have to do some research to learn whether or not there were any gameplay differences between Beastgrave and Direchasm. This might be the set of seasons where things remained pretty much identical in terms of mechanics. I do know that there have been some legendarily controversial changes made to certain things that had regular players quite upset between some of the seasons. I don't believe they'll be doing many mechanics changes between seasons, if indeed they do seasons, for the second edition. But that's just my own speculation. Line of sight has remained unchanged here, though. You can still see, if you are the character here in the light gray, all of the spaces marked A, including those past other fighters. They don't block your line of sight, but the blocked hex does, and all of the spaces marked B are thus invisible to that Miari Purifier fighter, who I think is just Miari the Purifier himself. You can still drive back your foes, but if the target of a failed attack action could be driven back, but there is no hex they could be pushed into, for example, because those hexes are occupied or because they are in an edge hex, the target is trapped. When a target is trapped, the attack action succeeds instead of failing. It is a hit, and if it is a spell, it is cast. Return to step 5 of the combat sequence, which is deal damage. Do not resolve step 7, which is drive back, a second time for this attack action. Instead, after step 6, check the target is taken out of action, skip to step 8, end sequence. Seems more complicated than it actually is. Underworlds is a pretty fast game once you learn it. And because it only lasts for 3 rounds, it's just a fast game by definition. Front to back, your sessions are not going to last a long time. You can probably cram a few into an afternoon, getting them down to 10 to 20 minutes if you are particularly ambitious and skilled. Yes, I do believe you could play this over a lunch break. At least set it up during the 10-minute break, and then when you go to lunch, come in, annihilate your foes, eat your burger, get back to work. Well, this is new to me. It might very well be in one of the other seasons, but I haven't read a section on scatter yet. So that's where this video will be different. Some cards or actions have the keyword scatter X on them, where X is a number. Scatter is used to represent the sometimes random nature of spells or even fighters' movement. When you resolve a card or action with scatter X, you will create a random chain of adjacent hexes that determine how you resolve this card or action. Interesting. The card or action will tell you which hex to scatter from. This hex is called the origin hex. To scatter from the origin hex, place the scatter token on the battlefield. You can choose how the tile is oriented and which hex you place it in, and then roll a number of attack dice equal to the scatter number. So for scatter 1, you would roll 1 dice, for scatter 2, you would roll 2 dice, etc. The symbols on the attack dice correspond to directions on the scatter token, so each of the dice rolled indicates a direction you can use to create the chain. I have seen this token before, and I never thought to read up on what it actually was. Where are you? This is the one. This is the scatter right here. You cannot change the orientation of the scatter token once you have rolled the dice. Okay, so just as they are explaining here with the pictures, you place the scatter token, there's the first hex in the chain, there's the origin hex. Because the scatter token has got the Warhammer symbol, if you have rolled it, to the north, then that's the direction that the first hex in the chain will be. You choose one of the dice you rolled and place it in the hex adjacent to the origin hex in the direction indicated by that dice. This is the first hex in the chain. Note that the scatter token's orientation is fixed. You can't change it once you've rolled the dice. Right. Now, if you roll a crossed swords, that's going to be northwest, so to speak. And that is the direction that the second hex in the chain will be headed, or rather, that's the spot that it'll be placed in. The third hex in the chain, if you roll another Warhammer, is the north side, and now you will move up from the second hex in the chain to place your third. That's the end hex in this example. Repeat this process for any remaining dice. The chain may loop back into the same hex more than once, or even into the origin hex, but each hex in the chain will be adjacent to at least one other hex in the chain. The last hex that you place a dice in is the end hex in the chain. So what can this do? We do have an example. If a card said scatter 3 from this fighter's hex, any fighter in the end hex has dealt 1 damage, you would place the scatter token on the battlefield, choosing its orientation when doing so. So the north head doesn't always have to be the Warhammer, and you do have 1 blank edge. So if there's a direction that you would like for the scatter to not go in, you can basically choose that by being careful about how you place your token. You would then roll 3 attack dice because it's scatter 3. Choose the order in which to use them and place them in a chain as indicated by the directions on the scatter token. The effect of the card would cause 1 damage on any fighter in the last hex in the chain, which is the end hex. In the example shown below, 2 Warhammers and 1 crossed swords were rolled. After the player creates a chain using the 3 results, in whatever order they choose, any fighter in the end hex is damaged. So, if they rolled 2 hammers and 1 sword, they're going to end up in the same destination no matter what order they do these in. If the end hex is the only one that's affected by this ability, then that's fair, that's fine. So you don't have to roll them in any specific order. I want to try this out, actually. Let's do a scatter 5, for no reason other than I want to. Alright, we're going to place some Dread Pageant monsters here. Actually, no, I want to be the Dread Pageant person. I don't want to be a Purifier. And we're going to place the Purifiers 3 hexes away. We're going to see if we can hit any of them by doing a scatter 3. Just going to pop this bad boy out, and then we're going to place it like this because the south edge is not going to do us any good. So we don't want our, if this is going to be the origin, which we will say it is, it's not going to do us any good for the spell to move south. We have one Warhammer, which I think that face is actually called Strike, and 2 criticals. So if we go on our scatter token, it's up and then northeast, northeast, and we have failed. Even if we were to go northeast, northeast, up, or up, it's northeast, up, north. Yeah, it's going to land on the same destination hex no matter what, so that would have failed. Okay, that's really cool, though. This one's going to go this way, and then up. But that's so random. It could be so random. What if we roll 5 dice? Here, 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 here. It missed. Much more effective if it's going to hit any targets on the way to its destination. And that would actually give you some relevancy in choosing what order of dice. Whereas this way it's kind of irrelevant. Maybe there are some ability cards like that though. Still, that's cool. I didn't know that's what scatter was. Then we have our end phase. Keep on playing. Play round 2, round 3. Here are some alternative rules. Matched play, ladder campaign. Ladder campaigns being as players enter, they place their names lower and lower on a list, and that list is basically the ladder. As 2 players match in play, if the winner of a game is the lower of the 2 players on the ladder, they swap places with their opponent. If the winner is higher up the ladder, they swap places with the player that is directly above them, unless they are at the very top, in which case the loser drops a rung on the ladder. Fun. And then there are, of course, multiplayer games. If you have access to 2 core sets, you can play Underworlds with 3 or 4 players. So I have access to, at this point in time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, It's 7 core sets. I should be able to accommodate a 14-player game. 14 players. Who wants to play Warhammer Underworlds at, let's say, the Fantasy Shop in St. Peters, Missouri? I will bring the Warhammer. I will bring the Pepsi Zero. We've got some fixed formats, and we have our glossary, which is always useful for Underworlds when you are learning it, and even throughout the intermediate games. Combat sequence chart on the very back. Let's look at these miniatures. It was the very first season, maybe the second. I don't think I have Night Vault. I don't have Night Vault. It was Beastgrave, I think, though, that removed the really cool, like, lore from each of the cards. So instead of awesome lore, we basically just get the mechanics for the fighter cards. The second edition fighter cards are lame. It's just the picture of the miniature. There's no art whatsoever. So for the extra cards, which you can use to do your deck building, you have Primacy. When a player gains or is given the Primacy token, they take the Primacy token and place it with their fighter cards. If another player has the Primacy token, when a player gains it, they take the token from that player. A player gains the Primacy token after an activation in which a friendly fighter's attack action targeted a fighter with no wound counters and took that fighter out of action. Basically, you will gain the Primacy token if you manage to completely one-shot your opponent. You can also gain the Primacy token after an activation in which a friendly fighter's attack action took an enemy leader out of action, regardless of how many wounds they have, since that's not relevant here, and if their warband holds 4 or more objectives. If a player has the Primacy token at the end of the round, they gain 1 spent glory point and then discard the Primacy token. They gain 1 spent glory point. Okay, and this is the Primacy token that we saw earlier. There is only 1 Primacy token. For the additional cards, we have Dauntless Aspect, Ferocious Blow, Ferocious Lunge, Ferocious Resistance, Hungry Advice, Hungry Bolt, Hunting Season, Hypnotic Aspect, love that card. Slick Rock, that's funny. That is funny. A Slick Rock, and here's this Stormcast Eternal, always looking noble and bold and heroic and brave and awesome, and they're just slipping. They're slipping on a rock. Idiot. Thrill of the Hunt, Earthing Staff, the Fearsome Trappings, the Formidable Defense, the Hungry Armor, the Master of Spoils. Hello, Morgwaith. It's only a matter of time. The Prey Skin Mask, ew. The Savage Speed, the Savage Strength, Soul Tooth Bow, Soul Tooth Spear, Absolute Dominance, Aggressive Display, Awesome Predator, Dominant Position, Hungry for Victory, Intimidating Display, Predatory Spell, Savage Exemplar, Successful Hunt, Surge of Aggression, Treasure Hunter, and Winged Death being the objective cards. For Miari's Purifiers, there is, we'll look at those fighter cards here shortly, Channel the Mountain, Channel the River, Channel the Wind, Channel the Zenith, Dazzling Highlight, Flicker of Light, Lambent Light, Surety of Purpose, Tectonic Force, Untouchable Pride, Balanced Soul, Heartstone Amulet, Heightened Reflexes, Heightened Senses, Magical Boost, Mountain Stance, Mountain's Gift, Scry Owl Familiar, Speed of Hish, Venari Dagger, then the Diamond Bright Souls, Elemental Blessing, Forge of the Force of the Avalanche, Haughty Exemplars, okay, calm down, Patience of the Mountains, Perfect Formation, Perfectionists, Purifying Light, Pursuit of Excellence, Seal the Beastgrave, Unsullied Hands, and Vaunted Speed being the objective cards. And for the Dread Pageant, Bonded Bodyguard, Cruel Pangs, Dark Desires, Deadly Embrace, Enervating Perfume, Fueled by Sensation, Lure of Slaanesh, Rush of Sensation, Shared Pain, Vicious Barbs, look, it's mocking laughter. No, wait, Vicious Mockery. Can't believe I used a D&D term. Cruel Volley, Dance Without End, Distracting Ostentation, Mark of the Dark Prince, Sadistic Goad, Sickening Resilience, Soporific Musk, ew. Strength from Pain, Swift as Desire, Sword Shatterer, Beautiful Deaths, Cavalcade of Madness, Endless Revel, Excessive Avidity, Excessive Carnality, Excessive Gluttony, Excessive Indolency, Excessive Paramountcy, and Excessive Vainglory, as well as God Seekers, Grisly Tableau, and Scintillating Sadism being our objective cards. Bahana and Island, the Mind's Edge, have these stats, which become these stats once they are Inspired. Something else I prefer about first edition cards, never mind the artwork, the abilities being on the cards themselves instead of on a separate war scroll. I liked that. Miari Lightcaller and Sanaela the Hunter become inspired and gain these stats and traits. And then we have their sculpts. I guess we'll look at Miari. This is Miari. This is his owl. Everyone say hello, Miari. Here is him on him turntable. Turning like a table. Here's the one with the ridiculous bow harp, and I actually don't have any shade or hate at all for the bow harp because I play a bard in Final Fantasy XIV, and pretty much every single weapon you get looks just like this to some degree. I actually think this might be my favorite sculpt because of that detail and because of the massive quiver with the huge great arrows in it, as well as a little tuft of grass. The elf in the clothing and the helmet and the stance, not so much. Pose, also not so much. Behenar, I think this one was. I like the posture, straight sword, the standard across their back. Nice little details there. I like that. I can't really hate on them too much, even if they are elves. I'm sorry, that was Island the Mind's Edge. This is Behenar. They are actually pretty cool. I like their helmet. The silly animals on top of the metal helmet, weighing down the head, crushing the neck. I'm always a fan of those, actually. They harken back to the old world sculpts. The hammer's really cool, too. I actually like that there's like a core through it that's hollow. And then the backpack and cape, all nice additions. This might actually be my favorite sculpt. I'll have to think on it. The Dread Pageant number in 4. Glissette, who becomes inspired. Vasilak the Gifted, who is the leader, who becomes inspired, and Hadzu and Slake Slash, Hunter and Quarry keywords included on the latter. They also become inspired as such. Vasilak looks awesome, although it doesn't look like he's supposed to be the leader. He looks like he's supposed to be the very strong knight that is guarding the door that leads to the fog wall where you fight the boss being the leader. But this is the guy. This is the leader of this warband, and it's a deserving title. Now, you would be forgiven for thinking that Glissette here actually had the visage of a bearded face, but no, that is her veil. She's actually a chaos baddie. Her outfit is kind of reminiscent of a dancer, perhaps an Arabian Nights theme. Arabian Nights is not the term I was looking at. I think just Arabian is what I was looking for. Bit of an Arabian vibe, maybe? The bits of cloth hanging off that kind of look like they are supposed to accommodate if you are in a hotter weather environment do kind of seem this way. I really like this guy's quiver. The quiver here is awesome, and he is being shown pulling out at least one arrow. He is in the middle of this action of pulling out an arrow from the quiver. Awesome detail on the sculpt. Really, really cool mohawk. This bow looks wicked and really sweet. However, it does not have a string. I'm kind of wondering, did I accidentally break that? Was it supposed to have one? No, there's no string on the sprue. I'm actually glad I had the sprue handy for that because it wouldn't have been the first time that I'd broken off a piece that was very delicate while I was unspruing the miniatures. Finally, we have Slake Slash, and he's awesome. I mean, he looks like a keeper of secrets, or maybe a keeper of secrets in training. I'm not sure if he's qualified to be a full-fledged keeper, but he is definitely on his way. It's got the bull. Well, they're not bullhorns really in the slightest, are they? Some kind of crazy goat-inspired animal that exists in real... An ibis, maybe? Nah, I don't know. I don't know my animals. I'll have to look or ask Shar. And then huge crab claw, because eventually we must all become crab, as well as a giant sword that may or may not be gripped in his hand or may be part of his body. All right, I'm half joking about that last one. What's this tail, though? That tail is... What is that? What is that doing? No complaints from me on any of the sculpts with this, really, although I love to poke fun at this one specifically. Miari, he just looks over the top. He's ridiculous. He's got this sort of monkish pose. I understand he's this purifying elf and he's self-righteous and highborn and all of that, just like every elf. But at the same time, the sculpts are still really cool. And that, more or less, is Direchasm. Will you be visiting? I hear that there's a special on round-trip tickets this coming fall. Only 8 sculpts altogether with this, but they are all larger and very well detailed, and there are a lot of parts to each of them, so you're not missing out on any sprue. all the sprue is getting used when you're putting together the Dread Pageant and Miari's Purifiers. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments below, and until next time, brave adventurers, I thank you for your fantastically kind attention, and I'm looking very much forward to seeing you again in the next exciting episode. So until then, I bid you a fantastic rest of your day, and a farewell and onward for now.